So first order of business, Apple Tower, in English, sorry. Apple Tower hosts a Zumba-thon toy drive every year to support underprivileged children. We are starting our activity already. We are dropping off toy boxes in our different partner offices so that everyone that can and wants to can donate toys, toys from 4 to 13, creo que se dice, right? What do you think? De 4 a 13. Unwrap, sin devolver. Okay, sin envolver, sorry, okay? Because we sort them out and then we hand them out. You are also invited to the activity where we take them to the children in Clewiston. I will send more information about that further along in case you want to tag along. But on December 6th, in the parking lot in Weston, in our office, we will have our Zumba thon. We will have a Zumba class.
Qué chévere.
Did anybody go last year? ¿Alguien fue el año pasado? Jime, well, that was fun, no? I have some great videos. George, sí, estaba rico. George hizo el video más funny de la vida, que todavía lo quiero matar. Porque I'm highly discoordinated and I was trying to follow the Zumba and I couldn't. Y ahí salgo yo de espalda haciendo. So we hope that everybody can be with us on December 6th. And whether you come or not, please remember to drop off your toys. That week of the 6th, we will come by to pick up. We'll send reminders in the chat. And as of now, thank you very, very, very much. There are many, many children that will be blessed by your donations. So thank you in advance for your disposition and your help. And then today, we will be talking about what this class, I call it roadmap, una ruta de guía, guía de ruta, ruta de guía, right? It is a roadmap of what we're supposed to do when we sign our contracts. We're gonna part from a flow chart that I like to borrow from the Florida Realtors, and we'll look at that in just a second. But we're gonna talk about sending the contract to the title company, important dates that we're looking at that we constantly get questions on. Just FYI, title company, should not be telling your buyer when their deposit is due. That is your responsibility. I see people laughing. So you can call us and we are always at your service, but it is important that you as realtors know with love and passion, así acurrucadito with the contract, that you know what your contract says. Not only because of the dates, but because the contract says everything. If there's a problem with title, the contract tells you what to do. If there's a problem in the survey, the contract tells you what to do. If there's a problem in the inspection, the contract tells you what to do. Everything is already there. Dicen que no hay que inventarse la rueda. Everything is in the contract, but sometimes we're not sure what it says. So it's important to know your contract, and I'll take advantage of that to say that we are going to roll out a new type of class. Who went to the summit? You guys were, I think the three of you were in the workshop class. We're gonna workshop contracts. We're creating a series where we're gonna workshop our contracts so that it gives us more in-depth understanding of what is there. We're gonna do it with groups. Hopefully we'll have more people so that we have a lot of small groups and we can all learn together. But for today, we're gonna focus on specific areas of the contract. We're also gonna talk about associations, and we're gonna talk about what you as an agent should or could be doing during what we call the pre-closing stage, the processing stage. When you call us and you say, what's going on in my file? The processor says, oh, we're still in processing, procesando. And sometimes we're not sure what that means. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that today so that we know we're all on the same page. Please remember to interrupt, to raise your hand, and to feel free to make any questions. So this is the flow chart that I mentioned that I borrowed from Florida Realtors. This is on their page. And the reason why I put this up is just to give you an idea of where we are in this particular conversation. So Of course, you've already gone to 50 houses and you've taken the client to the same house 10 times and they still haven't decided, but eventually you are going to get an executed sales agreement, an executed contract. And this is where we are parting today. What happens once your executed contract exist, once everybody has signed, once everybody has initialized, once all your writers are signed and you have an effective contract, then what the first thing that we're gonna do, right? Congratulations. Now what? The first thing that we're gonna do is send it to your title company, which I would hope is Apple Tower Title. So when you send the contract to the title company, you want to make sure that certain things are clear. For example, and if you're thinking that's so obvious, you would be surprised the amount of times that we have to call the agent and say, hey, I'm looking at your contract and this isn't clear or I need more information. The buyer on your contract, on your first page of your contract, needs to reflect everyone on title. So if you have a couple and the person that you've been taking to the houses is only the husband, but the wife will be on title, the wife must sign the contract. So anyone on the buyer's line in your first paragraph that will be on title needs to be reflected there. And this is important because sometimes, again, we're only dealing with one person. But anyone on title must be on the contract. If 4 weeks after you sign the contract, it turns out that we're adding somebody to title, we need to add them to the contract. So the contract always must reflect all title holders on page 1. Also, or an addendum if you're doing it after you've signed it. But it has to have everybody there. You also need to make sure that it's there because if they apply for the association, they're gonna wanna know who's applying anyway, right? So it's important that the contract is complete because if not, same problem. You're gonna have a certificate of approval that only mentions the person on the first page, right? And then you're gonna send it to us and we're gonna say, oh, but you only have one approved person and there's 3 buyers in this contract and you're gonna have to send it back. So always make sure that anyone on title is on your first page as a buyer. We as the title company search the buyers. So same issue. If we're at the closing table and you say, oh, es que voy a agregar al hijo. Oh, I'm adding the son. He's not on the loan, so it doesn't matter, but it does because I still need to search him. They still need to be added to the title commitment. They need to be on the certificate of approval that you've already given us and doesn't include the person. And you don't even know if the lender is going to allow it. That's a conversation to have at the beginning. If you're having it after the agreement is signed, the contract is signed, that's okay. Because things happen, things change. But as soon as we get the information, let's make sure that we're acting on it so that all documents are corrected or updated, because it's not really a mistake. So they're correct, updated as soon as possible. If there is a non-borrowing title holder, make sure that you are talking to the lender. Non-borrowing just means that they are on title, but they're not on the loan. And that's okay too. That's common with couples. But if they're both on title, or if one of the spouses, the one on the loan, says, no, I don't want them on title, and there's a loan, you need to talk to the lender because lenders actually don't like that. So I want to be by myself on the title, but since I'm married, they require that my spouse's name is on the title and has to sign a few documents. They're still not on the loan, but they're on title, and that has things that we need to do with that as well. And remember that if it is a primary residence, whether the spouse is on title or not, if there is a confirmation from the lender that it's okay for Hima to be by herself on the title, that there's not an issue with the lender, right? And Jimena is the only one that is reflected on the as the buyer on your contract. George still has to sign the mortgage. So if it's a primary residence, always remember that. It doesn't matter if the name of the spouse is not on title, the spouse has rights over the primary homestead property in the state of Florida. Okay, there's a lot of common questions. Oh, but we have a prenup. Oh, pero las capitulaciones. Oh, but can he sign a waiver? Sure, but for title, that's not going to impact in the state of Florida. In the state of Florida, we are going to have them sign the mortgage regardless, or if it's a sale, you're gonna sign as a seller, even though your name is not on title, because that is the protection in the state of Florida for the homestead property. Understood? Yeah, maybe? That one usually gets more reaction. Están dormidos. So, alrighty. Also, remember, please. ¿Ah?
Sí, ya me ha pasado eso de que después del cierre tiene que volver el esposo una semana después porque no firmó.
That still shouldn't happen. Eso no debería de pasar. Right? Eso no debería de pasar porque nosotros deberíamos decir dónde está el esposo. ¿Te acuerdas qué fue lo que pasó?
Eso fue lo que pasaba en esa época. No me acuerdo qué fue lo que pasó. Los dos estaban en título. Ella no firmó, lo que ella no firmó fue lo del banco, porque el préstamo solamente estaba a nombre de él.
Okay.
Y a la semana me llamó Jaime, que tenía que volver la esposa a firmar
Okay, that makes me feel better. Okay, so the loan documents in that loan, right? They're both on title. And what are we saying? That if they're both on title, regardless if they're on title or not, they have to sign, which means that if they're on title, of course they have to sign, right? There's no question there. But that doesn't mean that that person is a borrower, right? You can borrow by yourself. In Mari's case, we had a couple, a husband and a wife. The husband was the only one that was on the loan. They were both on title. So the lady has rights over the property. In order for that mortgage to be valid, the wife needs to sign the mortgage. Obviously, the lender forgot that that was a thing because that means that her name was not on the documents, right? Yeah, so there's different reasons why a spouse might not sign. And in theory, the lender will confirm if it's investment property, but if it's a primary home, they must sign. Honestly, we should have also seen that it was a primary home and said, hey, lender, these documents are wrong. You would be surprised the amount of time that lenders send the loan docs wrong. And it's always when you're rushing, right? When the closing is now at 11 and oh my God, everybody's sitting in the conference room and things like that. But the team knows to double check because they make more mistakes than they should also. And often we have to tell them, hey, there's a person missing here. As you know, of course, everybody, including buyers and sellers, have an obligation to help, to sign, to fix, to anything. That's what the post closing compliance agreement is for. But the ideal thing is for everybody to sign when they're supposed to, because it's unfortunate when you have to re-sign documents. There's a bunch of reasons why you might have to re-sign a document. It's not necessarily a mistake, but we definitely do everything that we can to avoid it because we know that it's very inconvenient. The lenders often call after and say, oh, we forgot to add a rider to the mortgage. And then we're like, oh, what exactly do you want me to do with that? So they'll typically pay for it. But in all honesty, I don't even care about what it costs. It's the call to the client to say, hey, something is missing. They of course understand that we made a mistake, but why would I know that the lender missed the rider? There's a little bit of everything. Definitely it's a team effort to get anything closed and to get it closed properly. So moving to the buyer, sorry, screens. Moving, I think there's a question. Let's see. Good morning, everyone. Oh, okay. Thank you, Maria. Okay, so on page 1, also, right? So we're establishing, we know that anyone on title must be on page 1. If your client is a legal entity, an LLC, a corporation, or any type of legal entity, it is the company's name that should go on page 1. However, please remember that Ambar LLC cannot sign for herself because she is not an individual person. So Ambar Castro, the manager, is who on signature page should be signing. Why do I say that? Because when we use DocuSign or, which is that the one you use? Any DocuSign type of technology, electronic signatures, you put in the name, and then when you hit to sign, it'll say Amber LLC. And then we don't know who signed the contract. And we can't assume that it's whoever Sunbit says. It needs to say the name. So when you are sending a contract to a client that is signing on behalf of a company, please make sure that the name of the signer is there and that you've reviewed the documents to confirm that that person can actually sign. Because if in Sunbiz it says that the manager to Ambar LLC is Jimena Villarreal, you can't accept the signature of Ambar Castro on that contract because who is Ambar Castro? It says that the manager is Jimena. So Sunbiz is public. All the information is there. It tells you who should be able to sign. Yes, there are cases where you're going to need the operating agreement, but that is okay. If that is the case, you should be asking for it also. You should always know who your client is, and who has the authority to sign if it is a legal entity. If you are requesting a certificate of approval from an association for an entity, it is the entity that must come out as the approved buyer, not the members, not the mother that's going to live in the property, the actual company. And that is so important because we've had this before where the buyer signs thinking that they can buy as a company, but then it turns out that the place doesn't allow it, that the association doesn't allow it. Or we had a file. If they don't allow it, that person can't buy there. Now, o sea, not as a company. Somebody says, y si no se puede, if they don't allow companies to purchase there, what are the options? They need to purchase as an individual.
Y no se puede, por ejemplo, ver una asociación para que salga la aprueba a nombre de María Gutiérrez / Gutiérrez LLC.
But if they don't, but that would be okay. But if they don't approve companies, they're not gonna issue that certificate. Because they know that the purchaser is a company. Yeah, they can put whoever they want there, as long as my buyer is included in the certificate of approval. What I can't do is close without a name. O sea, si dice 5 gente, that's okay, siempre y cuando mi buyer esté ahí, mi LLC. Sin embargo, si me falta alguien, era la LLC y Mari, y solamente pusieron la LLC, ahí hay un problema. Yo necesito que todo buyer esté nombrado.
Cuando hay una asociación y que está representando un LLC, antes de mandar oferta, asegurarse con la asociación de que te acepten un LLC.
Honestly, yes.
Que lo pongan como, o sea, LLC es la, pero.
Yes, I agree that Maria is suggesting, and it's a great recommendation that when you are working with a company as a client, that you confirm with the association first, if they approve association, companies. That one and the rent is the other one that I've seen files where people ask after, and then there's a huge problem. Some associations don't allow rent until like 2 years is the norm. So if that is the case, you don't, and your client is purchasing investment. Actually, that happened. I saw that in another. A ver. It's okay, pero share so that everybody can help.
No, le estoy resumiendo. Que si la asociación, si tú estás comprando a nombre de una LLC y la asociación te aprueba a nombre de Melissa Villegas y no a nombre de tu LLC, no puedes cerrar así. Si estás trabajando con una LLC, tienes que asegurarte que la asociación te pueda emitir el certificado de aprobación a nombre de la compañía.
Yes.
Si no lo permiten, te da un slash. No, que es que tienen, porque hay asociaciones que te dicen no. O sea, la compañía está a nombre de María Gutiérrez está aprobada. ¿Entiendes? Pero no ponen en el certificado la LLC. Ahí perdiste porque no vas a poder cerrar.
Correcto. If you come to the closing table.
A la asociación antes de mandar una oferta. Mira, yo estoy comprando el nombre de una LLC. Tú me puedes dar la aprobación una vez que esté todo listo.
The question is, do you accept companies as buyers? Esa es la pregunta. ¿Aceptas compañías como compradores? Porque si la respuesta es no, el certificado no te lo van a entregar con el nombre de una empresa, porque estarían contradiciendo su regla.
Claro.
So when you are working with a company, you want to ask the association, do you accept company buyers, an LLC or whatever it is, a legal entity as a buyer? And if they say no, that might not be the property for your particular client. Okay, so yes, if you come to closing and you say, ay, mira, aquí está el certificado de aprobación. But when I look at it, it says Melissa Villegas as opposed to Villegas LLC, and my buyer is Villegas LLC. We will not be closing that file at that time. That certificate needs to go back to the association. And a lot of times you need to reapply. Because when they issue the approval with the individual, it's because they saw that in the contract and they vetted the individual. And the vetting for a company might be different. They might want statements for the company as opposed to the individual, etc. So you need to ask what they want. You need to ask what they want so that we can make sure that we are applying properly. And then remember here, we were talking about the signature. Make sure that the signature line on your contract reflects specifically the signer per the corporate docs. Okay, not per the client, not per the spouse, not per the person.
What if the LLC doesn't say who the manager is when you look it up on Sunday?
That is not impossible, but extremely unlikely. Yeah.
It says one right here.
What does it say?
It just says authorized member.
But authorized member means that it's a person that's authorized to sign for the company.
So it could be.
No. That's a good question. Okay, so in Sunbiz, typically it'll say manager. But authorized member, que usually says AMBR, right? Authorized member is a member, un socio, that in their documents is authorized to act on behalf of the company. Being a member of a company does not mean that you can act on behalf of the company. Being a member only means that it's yours, that eventually you're gonna get a distribution. But it doesn't mean that you can do anything unless you're an authorized member. So when there is more than one authorized member on Sunbiz, and this also applies if there is more than one manager, because sometimes there's 2 or 3 managers, then you need a resolution. You need to either see an operating agreement that says that the 3 managers, one can act individually without joinder of the other. It might say they all 3 have to sign, but if we're not clear because there isn't an operating agreement, they need to sign all 3 a resolution. And that'll apply with either the 3 managers or the 2 authorized members. They need to either sign everybody or make a resolution saying, we 3, firmando los 3, decide that, Ileana's gonna be our signer. Okay, so if you have that, if that's an actual case, have them both sign. Is that not what happened?
No.
Perdón.
Only one side.
Have you checked the operating agreement? Was that an LLC? Well, you're supposed to send us documents already accurately signed.
The operating agreement?
No, my question is when you signed the contract, you should have already known who the signer should be. Did you look at the documents when you signed the contract? No. Sunbiz says that there's 2 signers.
Right.
How did you determine that just one could sign the contract?
Oh, I didn't determine that. Porque esa es la parte del itinerary. Y tú estás representando el valle. Sí.
Okay, this is in your client.
No.
No. Okay. So there's
The buyer is my client.
No, I understand, but the company that you're talking about is the seller. Okay, no, because the person that would have done all of that to confirm who's signing the contract would have been his agent. When the agent signed the listing agreement, they would have checked the documents to see who it is. So without looking at it, I would assume that there is a resolution or an operating agreement that said that one person can sign. And yes, the title company, are we the title company?
Yes.
The title company eventually has to ask that question. But we won't.
I saw it in an email.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question to anybody representing a company will be, hey, is there an operating agreement?
No, porque además la lista en este caso es la también.
Okay, but again, member and manager are different. socio y gerente son diferentes. El gerente es quien actúa, right? The manager is the one that acts. Just being a member doesn't give you authorization to sign. So we would have to kind of look into it. We call that due diligence, right? So we would ask the questions. Hey, I see in some biz that you have two authorized members. Do you have an operating agreement? Oh, no, we don't have one. Okay, well, in that case, we need a resolution by both authorized members saying who's going to sign. Or yes, here's the operating agreement. Oh, okay, your operating agreement says that so and so can sign by herself, or that either of the authorized members can act individually. So we get there, yes, and by the time we sign, we need to have confirmed all of this information. We won't question the contract. Because again, we understand that you know who your client is and that the listing agent understands and knows who they are. Where we might ask a question at the beginning is if when we get the contract, it says Ambar LLC, because then we'll say, but who's the signer? And then usually we'll ask you to correct it, FYI, if that ever happens, okay? So next, and most important, although we all know that escrow agent and closing agent is not necessarily the same thing, but you want to make sure that you are putting in your first page of your contract. Remember, we're going over those first pages of the contract that we are confirming dates and information that we want to confirm that is filled out when we send this to your favorite title company in the world, Apple Tower Title. We want to make sure that we are your escrow agent, assuming, right, that is going to be the case. Make sure that you are filling it out. And if the property lies within a condominium or is in an association, also make sure that the condo rider or the HOA disclosures are included. These are any riders that they need to include. Remember that in your page, your article 19, towards the end, there's like 30 little boxes with all of the available addendums and riders that the system has for you. If any of them apply, you should be marking them. If you do not mark them, you are not making them part of your contract. Okay, so you can add them later on, but they're not part of that main contract. And your condo rider and your HO or your HOA disclosure should always, always, always be included in your first set of documents if they apply. Remember that if you do not include the rider, the contingencies are not included. So if you get denied because you needed it to be an associate, legal entity, and the association says we don't approve legal entities, and now you're denied and your buyer doesn't want to purchase there, turns out that your deposit is lost, and we need to do everything that we can to protect our clients' deposits. Okay, so make sure that we are adding those riders so that those contingencies are there. As you all know, the condo rider has suffered a lot of changes in the past few months, right? And now it protects the buyers more. As buyers agents, we want those contingencies to be included so that we can make sure that we are protecting not only title, but the safety of our clients, because everything regarding inspections, at the end of the day, it's codes, it's all safety issues. We want to make sure that our clients are also safe. And then also make sure that if there are any addendums, any other addendums, that you are also sending that to the title company. Make sure that you are through the process sending anything as well. If you change the sales price because the appraisal came in so low, if you add a person because you decided that you're going to add the son to the title, all of those addendums are okay, but they require actions on our part and from the lender. So the minute those are executed, make sure that you are sending them to both the lender and to us. Credits. Oh, appraisal. Okay, so the seller is gonna give, it's a little low, so there's gonna be a credit, or we need to fix the roof. We're gonna give a seller contribution to the buyer. That credit needs to be approved by the lender. So any addendum that is changing terms, that is affecting figures, you need to send it to the lender. I want it too, but who really, really, really needs it and needs to approve it and make it part of their loan application is the lender. So send it to the lender. And then of course, send it to us. Don't assume that somebody else send it to us, but make sure that as soon as they're executed, that everybody is getting a copy of those documents. All good? So we're gonna confirm all of our portions. I think another portion in your contract that I often have to call back and ask is regarding who chooses the title company. Right? In Article 9, we have the three little boxes. Seller designates and pays for title insurance. Buyer designates closing agent and pays for title insurance. Miami-Dade Broward Regional Provision. Everybody visualize where I am? Yeah, more or less? That one. Often it's left in blank. And that's super important for us to know. First of all, we are really the title company. Because if you are the buyer's agent, but the seller is choosing, doesn't matter that it says Apple Tower here. The buyer might choose their own title company, and then we're not really involved in the transaction. So it's very important to be sure, certain, that who sent us the file is the person that is choosing the title company and then paying for the title insurance. Also, depending on which one you choose, there's fees when you ask us for a quote that might change, right? So if it's the Miami-Dade Broward Regional Provision, title, abstract, and lien search are gonna be on the seller's side, just as an example. But if it's the buyer is paying, then they're gonna be on the buyer side. So that's gonna affect figures that I send you, that I send your client, and that we send the lender. And of course, we don't want anything to be off with the fees that we send to the lender. Alrighty, so some important dates. Also, at the beginning of our contract, we know that in initial deposit on our lines 29, 30, and 31, and I always talk about my agenda. Look how pretty. This is what works for me. Find what works for you, but it is so important to be on top of the dates. It is very, very important. Remember that if you or your client does not meet a date, does not make the deposit on the required date, your client is in default. And then tomorrow, that's the reason why the seller is going to say, oh, I don't want to sign anymore. Can you please send me the $10,000 deposit, but I didn't do anything here. So we have to do everything per contract so that we can protect our client. So initial deposit on 29, right, it's going to say that it is made within, we have a blank. If you are leaving it in blank because you want the default, the 3 days, that's okay. But do it intentionally. Every time you leave something in blank or you don't mark it, please make sure that you're reading it, that you are acknowledging what it says, and that you are choosing to leave it in blank. And not that you left it in blank, maybe because you didn't realize what it was saying, because whether you fill it out or not, since it has a default, the default, you're stuck with the default. So do it intentionally. And this is the least of the important ones. But there are some that people leave in blank because they understand they don't apply. Oh, that has nothing to do with me. But then when you read it, there is an obligation there for that client. So you want to do all of these things intentionally. Okay, so effective date. What's my effective date? If we're doing it 3 days after the effective date, and today is what? Today is Tuesday. When what we sign today, 3 days from my effective date would be when for my deposit? Somebody count the days for me out loud. ¿Cuándo se vence el periodo para el initial deposit? Acá? Like, count the days for me? Tell me how you count them.
30 days, Tuesday.
Mhm.
Then day one will be tomorrow, Wednesday. Day two, Thursday, and day number three, Sunday.
Everybody agree?
Yes.
Okay, so for example, when was it? Hold on, I'm gonna give you another super duper example. So last week, the 10th, right, was the 12th? When is Veterans Day? It's the 12th, right? The 11th, so on Tuesday. So if we signed the contract on Friday, the 7th, someone please tell me how you count those days and when de noviembre. Sí, son 3 días. Firmamos el 7. ¿Y lo enviaron ese día?
No, porque ayer fue festivo. De testigo, no, pero ayer no,
El día 0 es el effective date, que es el 7.
El 8, perdóname, el 8, el sábado 8. Firmamos el 8, perdonen. Que estoy aquí inventando, la malicia no me está saliendo.
El 11 fue el periodo.
Correcto, so what happened?
Se corre para el 12.
Okay, so remember, the days are counted what we call calendar days, son calendarios. Todo cuenta. What might happen is that if it lies on a holiday, like Veterans Day, so my day 3 was the 11th and the banks are closed, then it does move over to the next business day. But that is the only thing, because you would be surprised. I still get that. Oh no, but I don't understand why the listing agent is following up. I still have 2 days. And it's like, what are you talking about? El plazo se venció ayer. Okay, so it's super important. Effective date, another way that I've heard it is that the day you sign is day 0. Right? So if we sign today, today is 0, 1, 2, 3, it ends on Friday. But remember, everything counts. Everything counts. People sometimes think, oh, pero el sábado, no se cuenta sábado y domingo. Yeah, doesn't end on Saturday and Sunday, but they do count with the numbers. Super important.
Sí, porque si van a mandar una oferta un viernes, pongan 5 días.
Mm.
Porque si se la aceptan el mismo viernes, sábado y domingo, ya el lunes sí o sí tienen que moverla. Y si el cliente está ocupado, lo que sea. Te digo, si la van a mandar un viernes, con 5 días para que tengan por lo menos hasta el martes.
That is a great recommendation. If you are extending an offer on Friday, Mari suggests that you do 5 days, that you intentionally put the 5 days, because if on Friday they accept your offer, your deposit is due by Monday, and you really didn't give the client a lot of time, because we all know that Saturday and Sunday, there's very limited possibilities of what they're going to do. So in order to make it easier for them, just do the 5 days. Okay, so I think we're super good with the effective date, correct? The other one that it says here that is less common, but it's still in your contract and an option, is the additional term, the additional deposit. So also, if less than blank, it will be 10 days after the effective date. And I will take advantage of this moment to tell you that here at Apple Tower, we have 3 wonderful and easy ways for you to do your initial deposit. You can do wire transfers, you can use SOCAM. Who has not used SOCAM or doesn't know what SOCAM is? Okay, so SOCAM is a mobile app, literally, it's an app on your phone that you can use to deposit checks into our escrow account. You take pictures of the front and the back, probably how you do in your own bank, in your personal banking. Click, click, and it deposits into the account. So on Saturday, your client can send an escrow deposit. And on Sunday at 10 p.m. as well. And when you use SOCAM, the escrow letter generates right away. So I think that's one of my favorite SOCAM things, is that if it is a weekend and you have a listing agent pushing you, or it's 10 p.m. and the day it was due today and nothing has happened and the client disappeared and now he's saying, well, now what? You send them SOCAM. Here's the link. Here's how you do it. We have a video and they can deposit it through there. Their escrow letter will generate by itself. You don't need me for that. It's gonna come to your email and everybody's happy. Okay, of course, wire transfers are quicker, but they cost. And for the initial deposit, it's not necessary to get the money right away. It's necessary to receive the deposit, but we have time to let the check clear. SOCAM is still a check. Oh, right? It's not gonna say, oh, and funds are here. No. It's still a check. It's just an easier way to deposit the check. And of course, you can always visit us at Apple Tower. We'll love to get your visits. Ojo, SOCAM is only available for initial deposit. You cannot send a cash to close for a closing via SOCAM, because I don't have time to let that clear. Okay, I just said we have time at the beginning of the transaction. For closing, we need liquid funds, so I need it in a wire transfer always. Okay. I've been coughing for almost 2 months, but don't worry. In case you're worried. Anyway. Alrighty. Other dates, financing. And this is probably one of the ones that you are more looking at more closely, especially when you are working with the buyer and the seller is asking questions. Well, how's the financing going? Well, where's the loan approval? How's the CTC, right? So I'm actually gonna put them both here. So everything regarding your financing. Do you guys do an email at the beginning with all the dates? Right, those are super, super important. And you should not only do that, but make sure that the other party goes, okay, so that everybody's agreed on your dates and you're not arguing about what the effective date was afterwards. Remember, your effective date is when? When do you have an effective date with your contract? Once what?
Cuando está-
Cuando lo firman y lo mandan a la.
When you execute it, which is what most everybody said, and you deliver and you send it to the other party. And I think your system marks it when you send it, right? Right, so in your own system, it has that proof that it's been sent to the other person, but it's signed and delivered. If your client signs it today, but you don't actually send it to the listing agent until tomorrow, your effective date is tomorrow. Okay, so make sure that you're delivering. That is the extra that sometimes we don't get. Remember, initials are included. Remember, if your condo writer is included, but it's not signed, that there is an issue there with the counting of the days. Be careful. That's why everything should be included when you send it. When you're official, when you're saying we're officially under contract, you should have all your writers executed as well. Writers, I'm not talking about the disclosure. I'm not talking about anything like that. The writers that you've marked on page 19 that are going to bring contingencies into the contract that will protect your client. So for financing, we have same premise, right? We have the line. If you're leaving it in blank, that is okay, but be intentional. Otherwise, it's 5 days. Remember, a pre-qualification is not an application. Okay? Yes, it's super healthy to get them pre-qualified so that they know that the house that they're looking at, they can actually afford. But once you have the contract, they have to apply officially for the financing. So you need to send the contract to whoever is helping them with the loan within the 5 days so that they can apply officially. The contract also has the 30 days, and people play with this to be more competitive, but I think that's really risky because you don't control the loan, right? Has anybody ever had a contract canceled because of the loan? Yeah, no? I don't. But I don't know. Bueno, it happens. So you want to be careful and you want to follow up and make sure that if you're the buyer, that you are talking to the loan officer, because if there is a denial, you have a specific amount of days to give that also. So if you have a denial, but you don't give the notice properly, and we have to be very, very, very careful, again, protecting our clients. So 30 days after effective date for the loan approval, and the appraisal is within the 30 days. That already changed a really long time ago, but it used to be a different time frame, so we always bring that up. Inspection. The only period or reason that you can cancel without having to explain anything to anybody. So your inspection period, same thing, Rayita. I'm okay with the 15 days, perfect. Or no, I'm gonna put less to make it more competitive. Whatever you put is fine as long as it is intentional. But with the inspection period, the buyer has the right to cancel. And the right to cancel is just because. At their sole discretion, it says, if buyer determines in buyer's sole discretion that the property is not acceptable to buyer may terminate this contract. Y punto. Does anybody ever ask? They probably do. I know, but show me. But
Sí, me lo han pedido. Show me the expression.
exactly. Is that what you do? Si alguien were we not talking about something like that the other day? What if an agent tells you my buyer wants to cancel, and the listing agent is asking me for the appraisal or the inspection? Do I need to send them? What's the answer?
Sole discretion.
No.
Sole discretion.
Eso fue Diana, no lo pidió y yo le dije no, o sea, no tiene por qué mandárselo. Y a los 5 minutos mandó el release cancellation sign así.
Bueno, cuando salga el crédito, yo sí le comparto lo
Crédito.
está diciendo que tengo que cambiar o pedir.
Yes. For credit, you would need to prove that the credit is due. But if you are canceling, you don't have to send them anything. Sole discretion is sole discretion. Porque me dio la gana. And that is okay.
De todas formas, hay que tener presente el depósito inicial, ¿no? Porque a veces, acobijados por la inspección, no lo mandan y pasó hace mucho tiempo, no sé si te acuerdas, que el seller pidió prueba de que habían mandado el depósito porque nunca llegó el scroll letter y el buyer Sandy Paul
Ujú.
canceló el contrato, pero Sandy Paul porque no cumplió con hacer el depósito el tercer día. Entonces, hay que tener cuidado.
Yes.
¿Tú hiciste inspección? No hizo inspección tampoco, pero canceló el contrato sin cumplir la contingencia del depósito, que era la primera.
O sea, ya cuando canceló, ya había caído en default. O sea, ya había incumplido el contrato. O sea que, yes, this all works if we are doing everything when we're supposed to.
Y en ese caso, perdón, ¿qué pasa si no?
Tiene que pagarlo igual.
Igual tuvo que pagar.
O sea,
If-
Lo pierde, claro,
Porque claro,
porque
la
no cumple
gente
los
dice,
3
no
días.
pasa,
Tiene
porque
que
se
verlo,
dice,
no,
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 o sea, dame el scroller, no, igual no se mandó depósito, te lo estoy cancelando y ya no, pues es que tú tienes que dar un depósito.
Claro.
Entonces el depósito. No lo di, bueno, ahora lo perdiste y lo tienes que dar.
Exacto.
Tienes que pagar.
Tienes que
Que ya rompió, exacto.
yeah, most likely.
este se liberó.
No, es que si te aceptan es cuando tienes que cumplirlas.
Ah, ok.
No, pero si tú mandas la oferta para
Sí,
una compra de
sí.
compra, es diferente a una pieza. Todos te las aceptan, lo que tienes es que cancelar la que vayas a cancelar antes del depósito,
Claro.
no antes de la inspección. Antes del primer tiempo, y el primer tiempo es el primer depósito.
Sí, hay que tener cuidado.
O sea, digamos, en esos 3 depósitos yo lo puedo mandar sin la explicación. En los 2 días. En los 3 días.
Sí, mandar la cancelación.
Ujú.
Sí,
¿En
antes
esos
del,
3 días?
correcto, antes de que se acabe el tercer día. De ahí ya no tuviste que dar depósito, te saliste. Pero ese contrato tenía 5 días de inspección y el comprador canceló el día 4 y no mandó el depósito hasta el día 3 que
Sí,
tenía.
yo entendí.
Entonces ahí fue que-
Ahí fue quien corrió.
Correcto. So we have to comply with all of our obligations, whether we're canceling or not. So this works only if the buyer has complied with his deposit obligations. Then of course, the deposit will be sent back to the buyer. Okay, but it's very, very important. Yes, if the deposit is not there, he's already in default. So it's whoever's in default first is the one that risks losing the deposit. Okay, and another of our special days, and this remains the same in our new condo writer, is our 5 days after the effective date. Again, careful with the blanks, but 5 days to apply within the association. There is also a time frame for them to reply, but we know that a lot of times they don't comply. And that's okay, because you can't really do anything. You just have to kind of be like, oh, here are donuts. Y tratar de enamorarlo, because there's really nothing to do. The associations are very difficult. But as long as your buyer applies on time, then you will be covered should you be denied. Okay?
Yo también muevo esa fecha, para después de la inspección.
Yo también, después de la inspección.
Sí.
Y no andar con ese rush y ese estrés
Mhm.
de que a veces que las asociaciones son unos paquetes así.
So what should we do with associations, right? Before whatever time we want to put, that is fine. Especially because, como dice Mari, sometimes they ask for a lot of paperwork. So these are our recommendations with that particular topic. So remember, we're verifying our contract, we're making sure that everything's filled out. We're doing our calendar with our dates so that we know what dates are important. But we're also, once we're signing, and honestly, if we could do it before we sign, I recommend that. But I know it's not that easy, and I also know that associations sometimes won't talk to you without the contract. But what you want to do is you want to reach out to the association and apply as soon as you have the contract. A lot of people rely on what the listing agent says and what the MLS says. I strongly recommend that we do not do that. You need to find out your information. The listing agent is supposed to give you information, but I have seen a lot of issues because the buyer's agent relies on the listing agent and then something didn't happen the way that it was supposed to. The listing agent said that we don't have to apply. And then when we get the title commitment in the title company, or when we get the estoppel letter, I go, Mari, did you apply? Y Mari me dice, no, pero el listing agent me dijo que no.
Exacto.
And I'm like, nena, but the estoppel letter says that you have to apply. Perdiste 2 semanas. Y si te niegan, you're in default.
Ajá.
So be super, super careful.
Tienes un email de listing agent diciéndote, you don't need to apply.
No.
No es una prueba, porque tú tienes que haber hecho tu tarea.
O sea, eso te sirve si tú quieres demandar al listing agent como negligente o algo así, pero para solventar el issue de que no aplicaste a tiempo o que la asociación, porque la asociación no va a obviar su proceso de aplicación porque el listing agent te dio la información mal.
Claro, son cosas que hay que hacer siempre.
So it might help you show that you were acting in good faith, but that won't solve that you need to apply.
Exacto, de proceso.
Okay? So we wanna reach out to the association and ask them questions. Who needs to apply? Sometimes you need every person that's going to reside in the property to apply. So you have the couple that's purchasing, but the mom is gonna live there as well, and the kid, and the tia, and the dog, and all that good stuff. And the association requires registration for everybody. For example, they are all different. I would also suggest that if you closed a property there today and you're closing one tomorrow, that you double check the information. Because I've also heard that one. Okay, I just closed one last month. What do you mean now? It happens. So let's be proactive. Let's call them, ask them who needs to be there. Who needs to fill out paperwork? What paperwork do you need to send? Because sometimes it's a lot. Ask them the questions about, can the LLC apply? Or how does this work? I need my certificate of approval to say that it's the LLC. Is that going to be okay? Can I rent? My client is an investor. Is it okay for us to rent? Oh, no, you can't rent for the first 2 years. Ooh, maybe that's not the property for you anymore. Things like that. Ask them questions. How is the interview? How is the interview? Because I remember a file where the interview was this afternoon, and then she's like, oh, it's presencial, but I am in Dominican Republic. I thought it was via Zoom. Why would you assume that? Don't assume anything. Ask. Maybe Zoom was, very common during COVID, but yeah, things are back to normal. Don't assume anything because things like that can happen. Obviously, it was literally like that. Like it was a few hours from there, so she couldn't fix that. You can't get on a plane in the next 2 hours. So we had to delay the closing because we weren't gonna get the certificate of approval on time. So ask questions, reach out to the association, ask them everything that they need, and definitely make sure that you are applying on time. Special assessments still keep on being one of those special things. Remember to ask the questions. I have faith. I'm a woman of faith. I have faith that with the new condo writer, things are going to get better. Do we think it's already getting better or not really? What do you think, Hime?
I think so, but everybody.
To cover the buyer.
To cover the buyer.
Yeah, cover the buyer.
To cover the buyer, that's, yes, so the, as you might remember, the condo writer, I'm sorry, now has a lot of language added to make sure that it is clear what is happening. And of course, my favorite is that it is clear that you do not choose to transfer a balance, that a balance is only transferred if the association allows it. But that is still important because the amounts that are due right now in a lot of associations are like life-changing. Those
Claro,
are
pero
the.
la mayoría de las asociaciones no están preparadas con todo eso. Yo estoy en las minutas, las agendas,
Ujú.
todo lo que dice ahí. What? No, ni idea.
Unfortunately, a lot of associations aren't up to date. So now after the changes in June, July, I'm sure they're starting to document, but then that means that in a year, when you ask them for the last 12 months, they'll be like, oh, here it is. But right now, what they don't have from the 12 months before, they're not gonna have it. Si no lo hicieron, no lo hicieron.
Alguien de una asociación me dijo, ¿por qué están pidiendo todo eso?
Oh, God.
Porque en las agendas y en las minutas
Mm.
van a saber si se ha hablado de alguna
Ujú.
reparación que viene.
Exacto.
Y de esa manera puede saber el buyer si es que viene algún assessment próximamente.
Yes. So that is important for the buyer's cash flow. But if there is an existing special assessment, you also want to know and you want to talk to the association about it. If your buyer is hoping to get it transferred, you need to ask them because only the association is going to say whether that can happen or not. And if they say no, be aware that if you put that your buyer is going to pay for it at closing, that they will need to pay it in full. So if there is a $50,000 special assessment that your buyer says, oh, I'll pay for it, that's going to impact cash to close in a huge way. 50 grand is a lot of money. So they need to be prepared. The lender needs to know that there's 50,000 more that they need to bring to closing. And everybody needs to know, even the sellers. Sometimes the sellers don't understand that that's gonna come out of their money. So if you're working with the seller and there's a, $100,000 special assessment and you're marking that the seller will pay, make sure that they understand that. Don't assume that because it says it in the contract that they know, because how many of your clients actually read their contracts? Anybody have that great experience? Where they call you with little marks and say, I have a question about article, no, none of that?
Con los listings pasa un poquito más, pero con los de compra.
So, ¿a quién llaman cuando tienen una pregunta? ¿En quién confían y firman todo? Okay, and I think I've mentioned this one before, that a file that when we got the estoppel letter, it turns out that there was an assessment. This was a while back, so it wasn't huge, but it was still it was like $16,000. Como no le pierdes respeto al dinero. 16,000. So this one was small, but when we looked at the contract, the language that said that the seller paid if they didn't disclose was marked. So if it's marked and initialized, that means that they don't have a responsibility, that the buyer needs to pay for it according to what they filled out. But the premise is, if you acted in bad faith and didn't say it, you need to pay for it, right? That's the premise. I think is one of the things that is missing now. But so it was marked, and I remember calling the agent and saying, hey, but I see that this is marked and that it's initialized. But he goes, no, but doesn't the contract protect? I go, yeah, but I see that it's, stricken through. What happened there? The seller scratched it out, sent it to the agent. The agent didn't even look at it or didn't know what was there, and sent it to his client. And what did the client do? So now the client was stuck. Contractually, the buyer was obligated to pay for it. It was wrong. There was bad faith, because why on earth would you strike that through? But that is what the contract says. So we have to be super, super careful. Remember something, our contracts, our writers, our as-is, are templates that everybody that does real estate in our area uses. Every single person. There's no reason why someone should strike out a portion. If you see it, don't assume that they're bad, but you need to ask. There's no reason why there should be, one of those paragraphs really stricken. In my opinion, I haven't seen the first one. Whenever I see something stricken out, it's because somebody's trying to hide something, or somebody's trying to be able to sell the property without fixing a title defect, or without paying a special assessment, or without doing something that contractually they should do, and that is part of a normal real estate transaction. So be careful. Again, they're not bad, but be careful. Those should be alerts. Stricken through text, think about that. Look at them, make sure that you understand what the risks are for your client, and never send it to your client for initials or signatures if you have not looked at it and fully understand everything that is there. Okay? And then we're almost done. So during the pre-closing, hi, Mile. How are you doing? Quería saber cómo va mi file. Ay, estamos processing. What does that mean? Remember, we are ordering title reports. We are requesting a lien search. We are asking for the estoppel letter. We are talking to everybody. While we do that, what can you do to help and to make sure that you are completely in the loop with your transaction? The first thing, and we've already mentioned this, is send any and all addendums during the transaction. Send them to us. Changes to the sales price credits, adding lender authorization is required for all of these. So if you did sign an addendum, please make sure that you're sending it to us. When you are reviewing an ALTA or a CD for closing and there are credits, make sure that you are confirming that they are there, because someone might have forgotten to send us the addendum and we don't even know that that's a thing. And then if you don't say anything, it's gonna close without the credit. So make sure that you're sending us the addendums, but also make sure that you are reviewing figures when we are trying to close. Keep in touch with us. Don't worry, ay, que llame mucho. That doesn't matter. We're here to serve. Estamos para asistirle. Call. Hey, I don't know what's happening. I saw an email I didn't understand. Hey, me mandaron el reporte. ¿Con qué se come esto? No lo entiendo. It's okay. Para eso estamos. Call us, ask us questions, stay in the loop. You might be the one that will help me fix something. If there's something pending, maybe one of the agents is the one that's going to help us go to the city and figure something out. We might need your help. So always stay involved. If you're calling us the day of the closing to ask us if we've sent the commission, you weren't really involved, so be careful. We have that all the time. Oh, hi. And you're like, I'm sorry. And who do you represent in this particular transaction? Oh, I'm the listing agent. Oh, great.
Okay.
Yeah, exacto. I just wanted to make sure that I can come pick up my check. And you're like, okay, it was great to meet you. I hope this was smooth. But we don't want to be that kind of an agent, right? We want to actually accompany our clients throughout their transaction. Keep your client, your buyer specifically, and of course your seller, but keep your clients informed. Sometimes we don't want to tell them bad things,
Usted sabe.
right? There's a situation that hasn't been resolved, and we choose to not tell them because we think that's better. But then what happens is that when it doesn't get resolved and you tell them the last minute, they feel that you lied, that you hid something from them, that you don't know what you're doing, that siempre se nos pega a nosotros eso.
Mm.
But that's unnecessary. None of us are at fault because there is a title issue. Because there is a lien from 15 years ago. That's nobody's fault. But we need to resolve it. So let's just let them know. And hopefully we'll get it resolved before the closing date. But at least if we have to push because we're not ready, they already have the information. In my experience, that conversation is a lot lighter. It's not that they'll be happy. Oh, great. You had already told me, so nothing's wrong. No, that's not the conversation. But when they know, at least they feel part of their transaction. They understand what's happening. And when you tell them there's a delay, they understand it as something that has already happened, as opposed to, why am I finding out now? What haven't you told me? And once you break the trust of your client, that transaction is chaos. So it's very important to maintain the trust and open communication. And wait is the last one here, what you're doing. When your lender says, oh, we're clear to close, please don't tell your client to come to closing. Please don't bring them to Apple Tower to sign. Please don't do anything until the title company has said, yes, we are clear to close. Yes, we are balancing the CD. And yes, we have loan docs. Because remember that once the lender is clear to close, there's a huge process there. It doesn't automatically, firma. No, that's not the way that it goes. The lender sends it to their closing department. In their closing department, they assign that to a closer. The closer contacts my closer with instructions to balance. They balance, and that can take 15 minutes, but it can take 5 hours. It could take a whole day. You never know. Then they balance and match. Then we have a final CD. And then there I can tell you, hey, your cash to close is 50 grand. Here are my wiring instructions. Go tell your client. We can now get ready for signature. But even with the CD, I still don't have the loan docs. And look at what happened with my Amarina file. The loan docs came in wrong. A lot of times we have to look at the documents and say, hey, lender, did you misspell your client's name? I'm telling you, you'd be surprised, guys. Or somebody's missing, or something is wrong. Or it says that it's investment, but it's actually primary. That's huge. That's huge. Those are things that require the lender to send things back to underwriting. And it's not gonna cancel your file, but it's gonna take a minute. So all of these conversations, we wanna have them before. And we wanna make sure that when we're actually telling you cash to close is 50,000, let's sign today at 4 p.m. that we're actually ready. Because unfortunately, when the client comes and we're not really ready, same thing, chaos. Se sienten que we're not organized, que no sabemos lo que estamos haciendo, que como así. And all we want to do is be ready. So a lot of times we say that it's okay and we try to accommodate and we're like, okay, bueno, vengan. But that's not ideal. If we're not ready to sign, it's better to wait. If CTC is happening this afternoon, unless there's a situation where the client must close today, the lock is expiring or something like that, honestly, guys, let's close tomorrow. Let's get the CD today. Let's balance the CD tranquilos with peace and determination. And let's close tomorrow because it will give your client a better experience. Rushing through closing is not fun for anybody. And when we rush through closing, mistakes happen. And then maybe you get a call. I don't know if that was the case, but maybe you get a call a week from now saying that something went wrong. We want to avoid that. And the worst with the rushing is maybe a fee. Maybe we missed the processing fee, and since it was so quick, nobody noticed. And then now it's costing you money. We don't want anything to cost anybody anything. We want everything to be smooth. So when we recommend, let's do it tomorrow. Maybe let's try to do it tomorrow. And let's leave rushes for actual need. The lock is expiring today. Notice that a lot of these times, they're not even gonna fund until tomorrow or Monday. Why would we want to sign today if we're not funding until Monday? We get that request all the time. There's no purpose. Nobody is at the property. Nobody's getting money. Why are we signing today? Ah, bueno, the person is traveling. Okay, that's something to look at. But sometimes it's just to say that the papers are signed. And again, when we rush, unfortunately, no. Thank the Lord, como criaturitas de Dios, hijos de Dios, we make mistakes. We're humans, and we want to give ourselves time to do the job properly. Okay, so help us also with that, and always help us checking checking your altas especially when we're rushing, but always when we send you the alta to review figures, make sure that you're checking them with us as well. Please help us. Final thoughts, know your buyers, have a file. If it's an LLC, have all your corporate documentation. If it's a couple, ask, how do you want to sign your documents? Make sure that we know who's gonna be on title. The question of who's gonna be on title. Ah, pero yo quiero estar sola, If your couple is getting divorced, maybe don't sell them a house. Because we get that one all the time. Oh, I don't want him to be on title. Yeah, it's your primary home, he's gonna sign. Unfortunately, that's the way that works. So, but ask, because we don't want these conversations to happen when we're signing documents or after the loan has already been approved and we're meant to close in a few days. Very often with the separation, we get the call from the one that's purchasing saying, oh, but I guess somebody, my agent told me that I can sign a document. Don't give them that type of advice. So if they need legal advice, let them talk to their attorney, but also make them understand that whatever they're doing with their attorney for when they get divorced has nothing to do with title. And whatever precautions they're taking for their divorce won't impact the fact that it's a primary home and that the spouse needs to sign. In Florida, all states work differently. So make sure to ask questions. Make sure that we know where they're signing, their marital status. Ay, pero que está casado en Venezuela. That's not a thing. You're married everywhere if you're married in another country. Okay, ese tigueraje, let's not do that. I hear that one still often. Okay, no, that is in my country, tigueraje. None of that. So, ya saben. Make a list of your important days. Remember your calendar. Make sure that you're putting all your dates. Make sure that you're sending the fully executed contract to us as soon as possible. The sooner we have it, we can request all the reports. There are reports that take some time. There are sample letters that might take 4 weeks. There are lien searches that might take the 30 days. So the minute you know that we're closing, send it over so that we can open it and we can meet your closing date for sure. Contact the association. Remember to contact the association as soon as possible regarding the application and regarding anything that you want to know for that particular property so that you can give all of the information to your clients. And of course, consider Apple Tower for your next closing. Thank you very much. If you don't follow us, please follow us. And if you have any questions, I am here. All good? Yeah. Bueno. Bye guys on the Zoom. I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect.
Si uno se acostumbra desde que tiene poco
Thank
documento
you.
organizado, después.